especially on Instagram, saying that they're so depressed, there's nobody to talk to. When you say you're depressed, people just look at you in a certain way. They just feel that you want attention. And you hear that all the time, that you're attention seeking. And so tonight, I believe that we're going to have a different perspective that will all spread. So whatever you hear here for the first time, I'm sure you have platforms that are powerful on WhatsApp, on Instagram, on Facebook. You need to spread the word about depression. That when people tell us that they're going through difficulties, when people embrace changes differently, we don't look at them with a different eye. And so hopefully tonight we can get some more information. Well, Father Campbell, it's good to see you. You know, I'm supposed to be a regular Christ the King. I see him and I feel like a sinner. I don't go to church. But you know, Jesus is my G. You understand? Anyway, so Father Campbell, it's good to see you. Sandra, it's good to see you. Peter as well. And for the ladies, I read your profiles, especially Ivy, and I can't wait to hear you because sometimes when you hear women talk about depression, everyone thinks that, oh, you know, as for women, you like to nap, you like to talk a lot. So I'm really interested in what you have to say to us tonight. And for you as well, it would be great to hear you. So I'm going to start with Father Campbell. Because you know, across Africa, religion plays such a vital role. When you go to the central region, there are a number of people who have been thrown into certain communities called camps, prayer camps, because these people register certain behaviors that we found strange. And so I want to bring in Father Campbell now. Father Campbell, as a parish priest, what do you make of the rates of depression in Ghana? I understand it's hovering around 8% in Ghana. I'm not too different from the likes of Nigeria, Botswana, and others. But for you, as a parish priest, how do you expect Christendom to approach the issue of depression?
Yes, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor. I'm an ordinary priest. She is supposed to be my parishioner. She hasn't paid her dues this year, so I see her later. Her dues. How do I approach it? Through various retreats and talks and counseling. I meet many people, many young people who feel like giving up. I've talked with young people on the verge of suicide. Recently, I took somebody's tablets from them, and I sat down with them, and I talked with them. I counseled them, I prayed with them. These days, we don't talk to one another. All we have is a mobile phone. And our children are lonely, they're depressed. It's part of their lives, it's part of their saying they need a phone. They don't have a friend to talk to. The parents don't have time. The parents bring them to school in the morning. In the car, they give them breakfast. Wash their face and go there and send them to school at 7 o'clock. The driver picks them up at 3 o'clock. They go home, the nanny takes care of them, and then they do their homework after bed. They don't see the parents until the next morning, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock. They don't talk. They don't talk. When they're going in the car to school, they're asleep. Saturday, we go to funerals. We love funerals. We go to funerals. Sunday, we go to church and to meeting. So there's no time. So children, young people, don't talk. If a group of young people sit together around the table, they're all on their phone. We're losing the art of conversation. We're losing that art of speaking to people, confiding in people, trusting in people. And I find my work as a priest, listening. Just to listen to people. Listen. They trust me because they say, Father, you're a priest and we trust you. My heart is full of secrets, thousands and thousands of them. And they know I will never divulge any secret. so they trust me. I also feel as a priest, as a Catholic priest, when you do something wrong, you go to confession. I see confession as a sacrament of healing. Many of the young people that come are broken by guilt. They've done something wrong. They've attempted suicide. They've committed all sorts of various sins, and they feel guilty. And I feel through the power of the sacrament of confession, when I pray over them, it's that healing power of Christ that gives them that strength to carry on. I tell them, don't give up. The greatest tool the devil has is the tool of discouragement. I talked to a class once of young teenagers. What's the greatest sin in the world? And they were saying, oh, murder, fornication, abortion. I said, no. The greatest sin in the world is the sin of despair. You give up. Don't give up. And I tell these young people that I talk to, don't ever give up. Carry on, no matter what, because God has a vision for you. God has a place for you in His plan. And so you follow that. That's how I approach it. I want words of encouragement. Words of encouragement. That's what I want. I want parents to have time for their children. It's not the best mobile phone and TV and all that the children want. You want love. You want to be told, Daddy, I love you. Mommy, I love you. My child, I love you. I want more affirmation. In Ghana, we're looking for riches so much. You know, it's not who you are, but what you have. Where do you go for your holidays? What car do you drive? Where do you live in Accra? These are the things they are asked. And it's wrong. It is wrong. We have to give our children time, love, appreciation. This is what they want, not money. It's not money. When you get parents bribing their children, if you don't do well in school, I won't take you to London for your holidays. Nonsense. Nonsense. You know, there should be that rapport between parents and their child.
Okay. I want to skip and go to Loretta. You're a psychotherapist. And you look up the word depression in the dictionary. Different dictionaries will give you different definitions. For you, this is your job. You talk to people, you listen to people. Break down depression in the simplest form to all of us. So we know when we're depressed and when we're just abusing the word.
Okay. So I think when you're looking at depression, it's important to think of it over a prolonged period of time and to look at the impact that it's having on the various aspects of your life. So usually we will diagnose something as being a mental health problem when it's impacting you in terms of your social life and then your work or school and then also your just your personal functioning as well. So if you look at the different areas of your life and how it's affecting you, then you get a sense that this is actually a problem, and as I said before, it's over a prolonged period of time. With depression, what you tend to see is also a serious sense of hopelessness, and I think that Father Campbell touched on.
Okay. So when you experience that sense of hopelessness for a long time, and when you say prolonged, what exactly do you mean? 3 months, 1 year, 2 years, 1 week, 2 days, 1 hour?
Okay, so not 1 hour. Right. So it resolves over a short period of time, and I think also in one of the videos it talked about the sort of the breakdown in terms of the DSM. But I think if you look at it in terms of, is this something that is short term, it's just a reaction to something that just happened, and then over a period of time it improves, or is it something that's sustained even though maybe that stress that has resolved itself, it continues?
Okay. Ivy, does that explanation make sense to you?
Not really. Actually, I'm still thinking if I was really depressed or I was just sad. But I think that I was depressed, although I didn't get a specific diagnosis. My doctor said it in passing that I'm going to give you antidepressants. But I also don't want to give you antidepressants because I think you can get through it without antidepressants. I ended up not getting the medication, but I also found solace in groups online. I joined a group that was for people like me, and then I found solace in people who had experienced what I was experiencing. So I got to talk to people without seeing them physically, but
And
I
what
don't
you were
recommend it.
experiencing was postpartum.
Yes, postpartum.
Okay.
For all my children, I have two, but I had two losses before I had two children. And the second one was the one that launched me into depression. Because the first one was like just a miscarriage or so. People told me that it's a miscarriage, you get it right. Second one was a preemie who passed. And I wasn't aware of myself. My husband and my mother in the night told me. I got up and I was screaming and I was saying a lot of things that were inaudible. It happened twice, and so I had to see a doctor. And then the doctor said, no, you can go through it. It's just a passing phase. But I lived through it with my leaving daughter's pregnancy. For 9 months, I was living in anxiety and fear and always gloomy, thinking that something is going to happen to me, to the baby. And when I had her, I continued living with it for about 2 to 3 years because I was always constantly having the anxiety, the depression that she's going to die. And then I just break down and I start crying. So it took me being on a platform with other women who were experiencing things like that to get over it.
And how long did it take to get over this?
I'm not sure I'm actually completely out of it, but I'm still in that group. Every once in a while, when I feel like that, I go online, go into the group, and then start a conversation. And people who are like me will also tell me what's happening with them. But I don't get it as frequently as I used to get it when she was younger. And now that she's coming out of the age where children die from very little things, I feel it's getting better. Yeah.
Okay, I'll come to the gentleman in a bit because I want to go back to Loretta. I don't know if relapse is the word to use to describe what she experiences. She says once in a while she feels that way, she goes back to the group. Does it ever stop?
I mean, I think that some people they're able to get through depression, but I think some people have various, so it depends, there's different types of depression. And some people go through various bouts of depression. So they might be sort of going like this and then you'll have a dip and you'll come back out and you'll have a dip. Or some people stay at a certain level, which is quite a low mood and a depressive state. Or with bipolar, you have your highs and your lows. So it really varies in terms of the type of depression, and she's in particular describing postpartum depression.
And she talks about leaning on this group. She goes back to the group and she talks. So talking about it is important.
Right, so it's really important. One of the things I always tell people is it's so important to have a support system. So if you don't have a support system, make sure that you create a support system.
How do you create one?
So you identify people that you can trust and that you can be vulnerable with, that you can really talk to and open up and get the support that you need. Because one of the biggest things with depression is isolation. It's a sense of feeling that you're on your own, and that's where you tend to sink deeper into the depression.
Okay. Thank you very much, Loretta. I'll give you some statistics here. It's quite grim, and I'm coming to the gentleman because, you know, in our society, when a man cries, you tend to think the man is a coward. If you complain, you're laughing. You're not allowed to cry. Hands up if you're a man who's cried before. Oh. What happened to demons? It's all hype, man. Alright, sorry, what do you say? It's a scam. I agree. It is a scam. So, data shows that men have, the data currently shows that men with a 2.7% depression rate versus 4.1% for women. So even in terms of gender, the men have a lower rate. But I'll come to Sandu because Sandu, you are one person, you champion this course. It makes sense why you championed it. You've gone through it, you're still going through it. You raised your hand up when you said that you've cried before, you keep crying. When was the last time you cried? Yesterday?
Like 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago. Oh, who broke your heart?
So that was the first time.
Oh, the first time? Was a heartbreak? No, I'm a magician. I knew it.
50 entrepreneurs where I was talking to them about toxic masculinity, if you're an entrepreneur, the stresses you go through and all of that. And I polled everyone and said, when was the first time you broke down and cried? And like 90% of all the guys was heartbreak.
Wow! Wow! Why? The man, come on, let's talk about him. He's brave enough to talk about his heartbreak. Okay, so how important is it to decide not to remain silent about depression, coming from your experience?
So, look, I think for me it was very difficult. I remember, because the stigma becomes just a very difficult thing to get over, right? And it's so deep. So the TED Talk that everyone saw, when it was first taped, I called TED and told them, cut it, don't post it. Like, I just freaked out. Because a part of me was just like, hey, Charlie. hey, it's we know it, right? It's almost like people suddenly just treat you very differently. But I will say for me, it's been liberating to be upfront about it. And I think what has been incredible has been, I've had so many people come up to me to just share stories about struggles they face and struggles that, someone in their family or a loved person, has gone through. And I find that a lot of men, a lot of young boys really struggle with it because of the way we raise them. So, if you just watch how people act with little kids. The little girl is crying, oh, come. The little boy is crying, come on.
Be a man.
Be a man. And this idea that being a man means you can't cry, I don't know where it came from. It's just, even those signs in school, it's true you're in school. The guy crying was not getting the girls. Right, so there's a way in which it's conditioned. We're socialized to kind of, build this toxic masculinity where you have to be the macho man, and it's not natural.
So you embarked on this a couple of years ago. Do you find more men opening up publicly, not just to you or in the comfort of their homes, but do they come out and talk about it more?
No. And again, this is why I think the stigma. So I talk a bit in my book, Making Futures, I talk a bit about mental health because I interviewed, for the book, I interviewed 600 entrepreneurs in 45 African countries. And one of the things I realized is there is a lot of the entrepreneurs I met also struggle with mental health because it's tough being an entrepreneur. It's isolated, it's lonely, you're going through the struggle. And I realized that a lot of them were struggling with that. And there was one entrepreneur who I interviewed in the book. And I was amazed, when she spoke about it and said, this was a struggle. And then right when the book was going to print, she was like, I can't do it. Let's edit out that part. Right? And so there's still that, and at least she allowed us to openly discuss it. A lot of the male entrepreneurs I met were going through it, but they did not want to go public about it. They did not feel comfortable going public about it because there was a sense that once you go public about it, you almost feel like you've lost control.
So what would it take to break that?
I think the normalization of it, right? And so to the extent that we're able to make it known, and that's why I tell people all the time that we have to be conscious about it, right? So we need to make sure that we talk openly about it, we create the right environment for people. We need to make sure that we're consciously asking ourselves, the test I always use for myself is, would I say this or would I react this way if it was malaria? And if I wouldn't, then it already tells me that, okay, I'm treating this differently. And so I think we need to do a lot more education, a lot more awareness, and it's great to have people like GHOne in public about these sorts of things and making music about it. So the more that we can get, people in popular culture to help. That's why I love when, I'll tell you, one of the things that actually helped me, to be honest, because even when I did the TED Talk, I didn't go to see a therapist, right? But one of the things that helped me was Jay-Z talking about it. He be in public and that's my guy. So I was like, hey, Jay-Z come go there and talk.
I get it. So, sadly, it's the men who love other men for crying or for talking about this public. True or false? Why? Sorry? That was. Okay, Peter, I want to come to you because you're an organization that focuses on mental health. Talking about mental health in Ghana is so heartbreaking. Number one, there isn't enough, budgetary allocation to mental health. Number two, you walk in front of the mental hospital, the psychiatric hospital, for instance, and everyone who knows you assumes that you're wrong. And it has happened to me a number of times. One time, my auntie called me from Cape Coast that her friend saw me entering the psychiatric hospital. It's sad the way we treat mental health in this country. So I want to come to you now. If you can walk us through, hearing from Sango and Ivy, from what they've been through, if you can just tell us where we are in pushing mental health in Ghana.
Thank you. Before I go on, I think I should also commend you for your work on the trauma law, which we have been following closely. Well, I would say basic needs practicalizes everything that you have taught today into the human being, in the community, and in the family. And to all the heroes around here, you would see them in yellow and green, or you've seen them in purple, or some in orange. Are all, with all apologies and respect to them, are all products of basic needs. So if you want to see how we are practicalized people who have gone through mental problems and have come out of it and are using their own experiences to reach out to others, to say, hey, you can make it in life. So basic needs is saying that we know what works. There is enough evidence. There are enough effective interventions, medications, professionals. People have tried models elsewhere that have worked. We want that to happen in Ghana, in our health facilities. We want the district assemblies to begin to go beyond just providing schools, but also advocate for mental health care needs, for building community psychiatry units in the community, so that you don't pass through a psychiatric hospital when they think you are, but that you can have it close to your family. Right. You can have it in a hospital. You walk in there as OPD patient, come out, and everybody feels that you have just come as any other person. You are not separated.
But when the mental health bill was passed, this is what we were all expecting. It's been so long, just like so many laws in this country. We're not seeing anything positive coming out of it. Every time this doctor say, who is saying one thing or the other, but you're not seeing anything, any commitment. You're not seeing the political will to practicalize the bill that was passed into law.
You're absolutely right. And that is because if a sector has been starved for so long, whatever is put in there is still in that deep hole. It's yet to come up. But I tell you, having worked in Ghana since 2004 in mental health, we have come a long way. Within 2013 to date, through DFID, a total of £15 million have been invested through the Mental Health Authority, CHAC, which is the Christian Health Association of Ghana, than basic needs. And these are developing these community mental health facilities, training and re-equipping health workers who otherwise have always thought that my duty is pure, I'm a ward nurse, I have nothing to do with mental health. I'm a community psychiatrist nurse, I'm supposed to weigh people and educate mothers. And I'm happy to hear that brilliant discussion you have had about your own experiences. To say midwives, don't just go and ask the question, come and let me feel how the baby is doing. But ask the questions about how are you feeling? How is your pregnancy making you be able to cope with your normal day-to-day activities? As Sangu rightly defined the domain definition, being able to cope with the normal stresses of life. And if a woman becomes pregnant, she is no longer the ordinary lady that you think she is. You should be able to find out beyond just measuring the size and how the baby is lying. But ask the question. And when we did a small survey in the maternal and child health facilities, they had one question. Have you ever had a mental illness? How will a pregnant person answer it? Have you ever had a mental illness? The midwife asked, have you ever had a mental illness? How will you answer it? You say no. But you have to ask beyond have you ever had a mental illness? Because when you tell me have you ever had a mental illness and I've never stripped out of the house, I've not been mentally ill before. But you need to go beyond that. We have recognized the issue of maternal depression, whether pre or post, that you need in the time of pregnancy beyond ensuring nutrition, ensuring good rest, is asking the emotional condition of the person. How can all those hormonal changes that come with pregnancy or immediately after childbirth impact on the person's emotional and psychological well-being? So we have taken this to work with psychiatric nurses in the spirit of what we all call now past shifting, past sharing, in talking about integration into community facilities. So we have these little community mental health units that are staffed by at least a psychiatric nurse, knowing that we have just less than 20 psychiatrists for a nearly 30 million population, and less than 500 psychiatric nurses. Very ridiculous. And finally, the issue of the budgetary allocation. It was expected that with this investment that DFID made to keep the mental health authority going, to realign community healthcare services that have a bearing on integrating mental health. Government was supposed to at least give a fifth much of this. Unfortunately, as I speak to you, we didn't get that. We got a good promise though last week. When the minister,
shall we raise our glasses to promises?
when the Minister of Health said yes, he's really doing the best he can, is with the mental health and the Ministry of Finance, and they think that he's not even up to the level of community psychiatry unit. Most of the psychiatric hospitals, the three of them, would have an appreciable amount of funding than they've had in the last 2 years. That seems encouraging.
Alright, so you talk about targeting psychiatric nurses, the midwives, and other people in the health sector.
Community members, social workers, Department of Community Development, NCC,
Right.
right, name them, to say that mental health is part and parcel of what you do.
Okay, how are the people receiving the message? Because what we have seen and continues to happen is that the moment anyone talks about mental illness or explain that this is what I'm going through, we tend to think that there is a spiritual cause, and so we don't want to seek help. How are you changing this mindset?
One is also to work with traditional healers. Father Samuel, of course, we have worked closely with the Catholic Church, particularly through Christian Health Association. And specifically to some parishes, including the Marshall NGO called Marriages, that is taking up education of mental health. So,
Charismatic churches?
the charismatic churches, Pentecostal, charismatic churches, Christian council, and all, we have had various engagements with them. And so in the communities, trying to encourage families. One good thing I also have to mention is, surprisingly, a lot of families are interested in the mental health of their relatives. It's only that when they have done all that they think they can, they give up. And in the first instance, they want to help their relatives. So we work with a significant member of the family, what we call the primary caregiver, who should be able to support this person. And using those community networks through what we do street down, community DEVAs where we try to bring the chief. Once the chief will come to the DEVA grounds, you get a good attraction of people, some significant people in the community, if you know they can come, and you have this small, effective community expert or practitioner dialogue. Bring in the personal experiences of all these wonderful people around to share their experiences and say, you are not alone and things can work. So there is I call it a grand movement underground, in communities, saying that we can't continue to stop thinking that we should discuss mental health. Let's discuss mental health just as we discuss teenage pregnancy. Let's discuss mental health just as we discuss high level of teenage people from the north to the south looking for headquartering business. And let's talk about it in the church, in the mosques. Let's not say, oh, the prayer counts are so bad. They are chaining, they are beating, they are starving, they are scarring. But to say, you are praying. Yes, because this person needs to have treatment, you shouldn't let your all night go from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. Let him have a rest. And when it's getting out of control, call the nurse, give something to stabilize. Why don't you continue with your prayers so that we don't drive them under?
Okay, talk about prayers. I think. All right. Working on. Father Campbell, you've been in Ghana for how many years?
49.
By the way, Father Campbell is a suffering Manchester United fan. Anyway, so 49 years. So the term Efiefo is not strange to you. You understand that, don't you? Efiefo. You know that. Okay, so witches, wizards, you've heard it before over and over again. Okay, many times. And it still comes back to the church. Because we look at this interesting statistic I have here, where, for instance, Harvard University says that people who attend church often register lower rates of depression. And that's very good.
It's not very good.
Is it? It's very good.
It's excellent.
Oh, actually, it's excellent. It's excellent that they go to church, so they find some shelter, there is solitude for them.
You see, the age we're living in, we're rushing here, rushing there. We chop parasitic like we chop kinky and fish. Take baby, we need to be able to go to bed, we need sleeping time. We're not at peace. I'm reading a book at the moment called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
All right.
And it talks about how he had a very successful lawyer, financially in every way, and he had a heart attack. And he gave up law, and he went over to India to the holy men over there, and he learned from the holy men what it means to be happy. And what he says is, go and contemplate. Contemplate. Take a flower and be at peace, and find out the color, the size, the shape. Just contemplate. Be quiet every day. And that's what I do every day. I spend 4 o'clock in the morning, I spend 1 hour quietly in prayer. Just on my own. Just on my own. Because the rest of the day I'll be busy. And that's what is needed today. is people need to be quiet, to think, to pray, to contemplate. We're talking about spirituality, to have an experience with a God, with a transcendent being. And that being brings you happiness, it brings you peace, it brings you purpose of life. People today are not contemplating, they're not spending time in prayer. We always say a family that prays together will stay together, because families have no time to pray. There's no time to be together. We've got too many broken families, too many broken people, because they don't find a quiet time in prayer. Just to be on your own and contemplate God, nature, whatever it is, just be quietly. And if you feel that cuts down blood pressure, cuts down on everything, the person is healthier, much more healthier, because he's at peace, he's quiet, he finds a purpose in life, he finds a reason for living. This is what contemplation does. And I wish everybody would do this, everybody. Instead of rushing here, going in traffic, going here, going there, meetings and all sorts, we don't have time to be quiet and pray.
Oh, we need money. We need money.
We need money. It's prayer. Half an hour, 1 hour in quiet prayer is going to keep you away from getting money.
That's true, it can. But if you find a large congregation and the pulpit is being used to preach wealth, the only success, some churches,
When I
that's
went to
what some
ICT,
pulpits.
the first thing I did was I asked permission to build an adoration chapel. It's an adoration chapel that's open 24 hours a day. You can go there any time for prayer. People come, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, they come and they pray. And that's been a blessing to ICT. A real blessing. The people go there, there's no quiet, they don't have to, there's no singing, it's just a quiet place with the blessed sacrament. This to me has been a blessing to our church. And that's what we need. Go back to
Okay, so I think that's actually something really great, and it's something I do with a lot of my clients. And what we call is mindfulness. So it can be practiced across religions and just even if you're not religious. But basically, you're being in the present moment. You're bringing all your focus to being in the here and now. You're being in a space of quiet. You're engaging your senses. And what it does is it gives you that, I'd say it's sort of rest time, right? If you're dealing with anxiety, you're dealing with depression, there's often a lot of noise in your brain. And so having that time to really quiet things down can be really helpful.
Okay, Ivy, let's talk about the men in your life. So your father, your uncles, the father of your children. How supportive were they when you were going through this period?
My husband was very supportive. He's sitting here with my son.
Can we clap for him? Very clean. Oh, over there. Bless you. A supportive man.
He was very supportive. And I remember at a point in my pregnancy, I just couldn't contain the anxiety again. So I just packed my bag and went to the hospital. And he went with me. I was not sick, there was nothing wrong with me. I just didn't want to stay at home. And my doctor, who is also a man.
What were you going through, if you can just recall?
I just couldn't, I don't understand, I can't even explain. I had this feeling of sadness around me, fear, anxiety. I just break down and start crying. I don't know whether it has to do with what had happened in the past and what I feared will happen in the future. So when I went to the hospital, my doctor also very supportive, and he admitted me. I was there for 1 week, not sick, just there, and then assuring me that he's there, he's watching over me, he's watching over the baby, and then medications to calm me down. And I stayed there, and people were visiting me as if there was something.
And what role did prayers play in all this?
A lot. I remember one of the nights when I couldn't sleep, and I was just having that episode again. My mother and my sister, we all got up. We got up and said, well, let's pray together, and then we prayed. And one of the nights, they even called our pastor in the middle of the night to pray with me. And that was the night that the next morning I had to go to the hospital and see if I could get medication for it. So yeah, our faith was also a very helpful factor in navigating through it. And even up till today, it's what I think has helped me the most, because every time I feel overwhelmed, you just go into prayer, and then sometimes things normalize.
Okay. So I asked you this question because Loretta earlier mentioned the support system. So you were fortunate that everyone around you was supportive. So I'm coming to you on this particular one, considering that you have spoken to so many people in similar situations. When you don't have such a system around you, what do you do?
So it actually becomes very difficult. So I think that there are a couple of levels to it. The first is you may even have a system, but you may not know that system exists because you don't talk about it. So I remember for me, the first time my mother heard I was depressed was when she saw my TED Talk.
You kept it from her?
Yeah.
Why?
And my mother, everyone knows my mom is the most loving, amazing person in the world. And so for her, she was just like, well, why didn't you tell me?
But why did you tell her?
Right? and the truth is, you know, once I was out with it, my mother, Adom, what is Adom? Adom is like taking pictures for us. I mean, I have close people in my life that are just always there with me, right? But I couldn't tell them because of the stigma, right? Because I couldn't even admit it to myself. Hey, African man, depressed. No. That was my mind. That there's no way.
Because sometimes you hear people say, oh, depression, white people's problem.
Yeah.
Right.
So to me, I just couldn't admit it. And I think it was also, it also took a different, and that's why it really matters, Ivy, to your point, it's great that you actually had a pastor who was understanding, right? Because I think depending on, you know, different religious leaders handle it differently. So there are some people that will say, you know, you are blessed, you know, so cancel this nonsense, right? And you won't pay attention to it, right? Or some people who say, you know, like I know someone that was going through a tough time and said, was trying to tell the parents that, hey, I'm going through depression. But that's it. They're not going through that. Cancel this anyone. So she's like, okay, I guess I'm not going through that. Right? So there wasn't the right environment to kind of let the person come out and talk about it. For us, there were others. In my case, I think I was a bit fortunate in that my priest basically was like, look, it's nothing negative about you, or it doesn't say less about your spiritual worth, right, or your value to God if you're going through this. And reminded me that at the end of the day, keep in mind that, you know, it's in our weakness that we're made perfect, right? It's in our weakness that you. So in a twisted way, for me, going through that depression actually brought me closer to God, right? Because it makes you realize that we can't do it all, right? And in spite of all the stuff that I was achieving on paper, we're not Superman, right? And we're not Superman or Superwoman. And I think it's in those times that your support system, your family, your loved ones, the people around you can rally around you, you know? And it's difficult because sometimes it's unlike if you have malaria, you have typhoid or something, people around you can tell immediately, right? They can tell, they can look and see something is off. Sometimes it's not as obvious if you're going through these challenges, and people cannot always tell, right? So that's why I think sometimes it's very important to just check in. I don't constantly check in with me, even after, even after like I'm fine, you constantly just checking. How are you doing? Is everything okay? And so I think it's really important that we check in and make sure that our loved ones, because sometimes people may not even realize or have the time to think through to say what's going on here. So we need to check in on our loved ones.
Now, this is a question for all of you here. When I posted a flyer yesterday, a gentleman in my DM said that why are we obliged to say or to respond to how are you with I'm fine, thank you. If you're not fine, you are told that A, you woke up this morning, you are alive, and you're not fine. The latest says, how are you? I'm blessed. Right? I'm going to go around this panel. Just share your thoughts on that. This gentleman's main headache, like it's a headache for him. Like you are asked, how are you? You just expect to say, I'm fine, thank you. When you're really not fine.
We're living in a very personal society. So when somebody says, how are you? Automatically, when I go to children, how are you? I am fine, thank you. And you. It's just automatic. We don't have friends that can say, look, actually I feel lousy. I don't feel happy. And you'll be able to share it. We don't have those. We don't have that system where we've got somebody we can really share our deepest feeling. Today I feel rotten. I don't feel like going to work. I feel like shouting. We don't have those. That is our problem. We're living in a personal, commercial, monetized society. That's what we're living in. So we should get out of that and let's develop friendships. Develop friendships so that we're able to have good friends we can talk to. Our own parents, our own family. Families are breaking down. Families are breaking down. We're not talking in families. We're not talking. We're on our phone. We're coming in late. We don't see one another. We're breaking down interpersonal relationships in our lives. Like, who really knows you? Who knows how you feel? Today I feel rotten, I feel stinky. Who do you tell? You don't tell anybody. You don't tell anybody. I talked to a doctor the other day, and we talked. And I said to the doctor, when you have a problem, I said, who do you talk to? He says, I talk to myself. I said, a doctor. I would expect something more, But this is the society we're living in. Sadly. That's why there's so many broken children. Children wanting to commit suicide. Children on porn. This awful porn which they are watching. And it's destroying children's lives. This is children come home from school, straight up to the room, they lock the door, just on the phone. Breaking relationships. So to me, I am fine. It's telling us the society we're living in.
Okay. Sandu.
I think part of the issue is we don't have the tools, right, to even know how to. We haven't really spent time, to Lorita's point about mindfulness, right, to really think through. So a lot of, it took me 6 months to be able to actually answer the question, how do you feel? Right, I'm fine, right? But then it's later when you actually understand what it means. How do you listen to your body? How do you take the time to slow down and say, how do you even recognize the different type of emotions, right? Am I sad? What does sadness feel like? Am I giving myself that space to experience that sadness? And learning that emotions are actually your friend. Because, it's just telling you information about your body.
Right. Peter.
Yeah, thanks. I want to go back to the issue of networks of support systems. As basically, one of the things we have done is the self-help groups. These are neighborhood groupings of people of similar experiences who come and share their joys, their bad moments, they sing together, they cry together. They know that when they come to the group, they can say it as it is because they have the shoulders of the others lean, both literally and figuratively. So And also using these self-help groups as models in the community to say, after all, this person has come out openly and nothing has changed. He has not been negative in any way. And also addressing issues around their livelihoods, an opportunity to do something for themselves. Use what you had desired to do, but because of your illness, you've not had the opportunity. The bank will not give you a loan, the SUSU collector, the community will not. But you have the assurance of getting support from basic needs to say, make the mistakes. You will learn from it, you are likely to earn from it. Even if it collapses, you have learned something. When you get the next opportunity, you would improve. The final part for me, as somebody from the rural setting, and observing as a sociology student, is the transition in which we found ourselves. We are, for lack of a better word, in the quagmire of the Western world and what we said were our long tried and tested values, which we are yet to really find a good balance to live with. So, where in the rural communities, for me, it's common to hear somebody say, I swear by my father, who has passed away, but there is a certain connection with this father because we believe in that spirituality. Even as I speak as a Catholic, there are times I say, I swear by my ancestor. Now, we see in Accra, it's either gosh or the F word, isn't it? Yeah? So, when people are becoming drifted away, but some people still hold on to it. And again, you look at it, where do you have the most grouping? The men's fellowships, the women's fellowships, the youth fellowships. Where do they come from? It's the churches. And when you go outside of the church, what are their equivalents? How many of us are able to pay for clubs where you are a member by subscription? You are part of the golf club or wherever, pay the monthly subscription. You don't. So the religious bodies, both Muslim, Christian, of all the denominations and whatever, are a good safety net for people. And that's why you would see that people are better off attending church or being part of religious bodies than those who claim they are free thinkers and have very few networks and thinking about how much they earn or how the pressure to succeed. Everybody wants the son to be that big lawyer, that big engineer. Oh, he's traveling abroad. If you don't, you are a failure. So that's also the pressure. We have to come to terms with so that we can save ourselves from all this pressure.
Ivy, your final word.
So to answer your question, I'll say that we are an overly religious group of people, and it's cultural. So when we say, how are you? You possibly say, I'm fine, because the Bible says, even if you are poor, you are rich. Yeah. So we speak it into being. That's why we say we are fine, just like that. So if I'm not fine, I'm fine.
Loretta, is it okay to say I'm not fine?
Yeah, I think it's definitely okay to say it's not fine. So, I mean, I remember when I was in Chicago, people say, how are you? And I'd always get so upset, like, why do these people never wait to listen to how I am? And then I understood that it just meant hi, and you weren't really supposed to give a proper reply.
Yeah.
So being here, actually, I find that I really make the effort to say how I'm actually feeling. So how are you? I'm tired, or I'm a bit hungry. And when my clients come into session and I say, well, how are you today? And they say, okay. I say, you know what, there's some cards here, and you can pick out the card that sort of represents how you're feeling. And before you know it, there's like 5 different cards on the table, and I'm like, ooh, okay, that's a bit different than what you said coming in. But it's even just you, sometimes you don't know how you feel. So the auto response is also, I'm fine, because you don't really take the time to reflect on how you're feeling.
All right. We have to say a big thank you to the Harvard Center for African Studies, the Harvard Club of Ghana, the World Economic Forum Global Shapers Accra Hub, and the Mental Health Society of Ghana. They're the sponsors of this beautiful conversation we've had here tonight. I'm sure you're taking a lot home. But yes or no, is social media contributing to the high levels of... Oh, I didn't hear you. It comes with pressure, huh? Thank you. You can just take the microphone for just 1 minute. Tell us why, and you don't absolutely have to answer this question, but I hope you do. Why we don't have too many of our musicians speaking to issues like this? Why is it always about some woman's body?
First off, art is just a reflection of the society at large.
Right.
So if the society was more accommodating of people speaking about issues like this, then artists will open up and talk more.
Okay.
Because for most artists, they're doing what they think you want to hear. You understand? So whatever is coming out of their mouth and you feel like, oh, why are you always talking about the woman's body or whatever? It's because they feel like you want to hear about the woman's body. And it's when you like what they speak about, that's when they eat. So of course it goes back to, yeah, I want to eat. At least by eat, I can say I'm fine and be with the rest of my
That's a good one. That's a good one. Ladies and gentlemen, I round of applause for you. And thank you so much for that time, girl. You see me in church this Sunday. I promise. Yeah. Oh, no, I can't do that. Sangu, thank you. Thank you absolutely for putting this together. Peter, thank you. Basic Needs. Ivy, pleasure listening to you. And Loretta, thank you as well for joining us here tonight. My name is Lanaba. Thank you for coming. I'm sure you had fun, right? Okay, so can you clap for yourselves then? Thank you so much.